Hey, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, I'm Vanessa Van Edwards, and this is a channel about body language, communication, and persuasion. And today we're going to talk about the subtle art of influence. We all want to be able to subtly influence those around us in conversations to get what we want, to get our needs met, to feel more validated or persuasive. But there are some very simple techniques that you can use in everyday conversations to make it more likely that people will agree with you, think your way, and see things your way. And these subtle influences work whether you're talking in person, talking on the phone, or even messaging via text. So let's dive into 7 subtle conversation hacks to influence others. Hack No. 1 is called the Rule of 3. And we know from research that when we repeat something 3 times, it becomes more believable, and so there's a great example of this in an ad campaign. In one campaign, they found that if they repeated a claim only once, it didn't make a difference. If they repeated a claim twice, it made a small difference. But when they repeated the claim 3 times, it increased sales by 34%. Now this can be used in a negative way and a positive way. For example, someone might try to convince you to do something saying, "You really need to do this. You should really do this. You gotta do this." Or they may try to influence you by saying, "That was a terrible experience, horrible experience, awful experience." The more you repeat something, the more believable it is, and the more likely you are to take action on it. Subtle hack No. 2 is to use a little bit of storytelling to change other people's minds. So in a study conducted by researchers at Northwestern University, they found that people were more likely to support a claim if it was presented to them with a story. So, in one part of the study, participants read a story about a hypothetical student who struggled with workload and then had to choose between 2 policies. They were much more likely to support the policy that aligned with the student's interest based on the story that they just read. Our brains love stories. Stories make things more memorable. It helps us process information, and it makes it more believable. And so, if you want to increase your influence over others, learn how to incorporate stories into your communication. Subtle hack No. 3 to influence others is to use the halo effect. The halo effect is basically where we take one piece of information about a person and we generalize it to other aspects of their personality. We all do this to some degree. For example, if I walk up to you and I say, "I have a master's degree," and then I start talking to you about like business or finance, you may subconsciously think that I know more about those topics than I actually do just because I have a master's degree. That's an example of the halo effect. You're letting that one piece of information color your perception of me on those other topics, and the same is true in reverse. If I came in and I said, "I don't have any education, I never went to college," you may think that I'm not as smart or capable as I actually am. Halo effect works in advertising all the time. For example, if a celebrity endorses a product, we're more likely to buy that product simply because we like the celebrity. And it also works in hiring. In one study, researchers had human resources managers look at the same exact resumes with one difference. Some resumes had a photo and some did not. The ones that had a photo of a very attractive man were more likely to be called in for an interview. When you dress well, wear a nice outfit, look put together, people will attribute all sorts of positive qualities to you that may not actually be true. And so leveraging the halo effect can help you become more influential in day-to-day conversations. The 4th subtle hack to manipulate conversations and to influence others is to use the foot in the door technique. This is where you ask someone for a small request and then build off of that and ask for more. For example, if you want to go to the movies with a friend, instead of just asking, "Do you want to go to the movies with me?" you might first start by asking, "Hey, do you want to hang out sometime this week?" They say yes. Then you ask, "Hey, do you want to grab coffee?" They say yes. Then you say, "Hey, do you want to go to the movies?" This technique works because when we say yes to something, we tend to say yes to other things after that. It commits us to a certain action or behavior. And so it's easier to say yes to those subsequent requests. The key is to start with something small and then slowly build your way up to that larger request. Hack No. 5 is to use what's called the door-in-the-face technique. This is the opposite of the foot-in-the-door technique. Instead of starting with a small request and building your way up, you start with a large request and then come down to a smaller request. For example, if you want to ask your boss for a raise, you might start by asking for 50% raise. And when they say no, then you say, well, okay, how about a 20% raise? By starting with that larger number, it sets the anchor for the conversation. It gives you more room to negotiate, and it makes the final number seem much smaller. It's also important to justify your initial large request with reasoning. For example, if you're asking for a raise, don't just ask for 50% raise because that seems unreasonable. Say something like, based on my performance this year, the additional responsibilities I've taken on, and the fact that inflation has caused prices to rise, I think a 50% raise is justified. By providing reasoning, even if your initial request is denied, you'll have more credibility and you'll set a higher anchor in the conversation. Subtle hack No. 6 is to use the Benjamin Franklin approach. This is a great way to change someone's mind by appealing to their emotions and their self-interest. So in his autobiography, Benjamin Franklin talks about how he once disagreed with a man on a certain topic and decided to write him a letter about it. Before sending the letter, he asked God to turn the man's heart to his way of thinking. Then he got a response from the man agreeing with everything he said. He didn't convert the man's mind with logic or reason. He appealed to something much more powerful, his emotions. When we appeal to someone's emotions, we create a personal connection with them. It makes them more open to our ideas, and it makes us more likable. And so, if you want to be more influential in conversations, practice this. Think about how you can appeal to other people as emotions and show that you understand their point of view. And the last subtle hack to manipulate conversations and to be more influential with others is to use the principle of scarcity. This is a classic marketing tactic where they say that something is rare or unique or hard to get, and therefore it must be valuable. So, for example, if you see a pair of shoes that says limited edition or only 100 pairs available, you're more likely to buy those shoes because you think they must be valuable since they're rare. Same thing with time. We often think that things are more valuable if they're hard to get or if there's a limited amount of them. And so if you want to be more influential in your conversations, you can use this principle by making yourself scarce. If you're always busy, always have a million things to do, people will attribute more value to you simply because they can't get your time or attention. Scarcity also works with information. If you say, I have some exclusive information for you, people are more likely to listen to what you have to say. The bottom line is that people want what they can't have. They want access to information that's rare or valuable. And so by making yourself scarce, you'll naturally become more influential. At the end of the day, influence is everywhere. It's a part of everyday conversations. And while it's important to be aware of the different ways that we can influence others, it's also important to be aware of the different ways that we can be influenced. I hope this video has been helpful. I would love to hear from you. Which of these tips will you try? Let me know down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.